about skateboarding, but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood. Crab skateboarding, crab skateboarding podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Crap Skateboarding Podcast, a weekly dive into skateboarding for the average skater, hosted by me, James.
And me, Jack.
In this podcast, two distinctly average skaters chat to skaters from all around the UK who represent a huge range of different aspects of our chosen sport, from the weird and wonderful and the truly talented.
Each week, we will be discussing a range of exciting topics regarding skateboarding in these uncertain times.
And this week, Jack, our topic is...
Drum roll, please!
Women and skateboarding!
And we are joined this week by Gabby from the Artemis skate company. Good to see you, Gabby.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Gabby, we normally start by just asking our guests just to briefly describe their relationship with skateboarding.
Okay, so I started skating maybe about 3 years ago now. And that was back in Winchester, which is my hometown. That's where I grew up. It's kind of a small town in Hampshire. And at the time, there weren't really any girls that I knew that skated at all. And I was way too intimidated to go to the skate park. Because it's, it's quite it's a small size, but the type of ramps they have there are like, quite big, and I just thought there's no way I'd ever be able to do anything if I'm starting out on there, and it was, full of really great skaters, and I just thought, no, there's no way. So I would just kind of skate on my road outside my house, or I go to car parks and stuff like that, which I think is just the classic story that everyone starts out with. They're just, kind of figuring it out on their own for a bit at first, and then eventually I went to uni in Bristol. And at that point, this was probably like a year later, I'd already started to build up a bit more confidence with skating, and I was just skating around more in the city centre and on the streets. And just by process of doing that, I met a few girls. Already it's a bigger city, and it had, a great scene historically for skating anyway. So I just, by chance met some more people. And then through that found that campus skate parks had a monthly girls' night where they kind of shut the whole park. I think it was on a Monday, and they would just shut the whole park, and it would just be girls only for a whole evening. So I thought, oh great, it would be a great opportunity for me to try and do some more park stuff. And more and more girls started turning up, and it's starting to be like a really big success. And we started pestering campus. We're like, we want more sessions, like more than just once a month. Like we want to have, at least once every fortnight. And eventually they were like, yeah, this is great, and because they had such good turnout. And now they do it every week, which is great. So girls that are starting out and want to do more park stuff have that kind of safe space to learn, which is really, really good. So that's kind of my sort of personal journey with it, and then the Artemis stuff came a bit after that.
So how did the Artemis stuff come about then? What made you go from sort of just being a skater, like so many millions of us are, to wanting to start your own brand?
Yeah, it's an interesting question actually, because when I think back on it, it developed very slowly over time. I never had this kind of idea to be like, I want to run a brand and for it to be about skating. It kind of, so it was sort of a process. So it starts off quite randomly. I was reading Mythos by Stephen Fry. I don't know if either of you have read that book, but it's
I know of it.
So it's like a modern retelling of the Greek myths basically, and he writes it. There's also a really great audiobook of him where he reads out his own book. So I was reading it, and this was, I had already skated for maybe a year at this point. And it gets to the story of how Apollo and Artemis are born. and their brother and sister. And obviously Apollo is the god of the sun, and Artemis is kind of sort of the goddess of the moon, but she's more the goddess of hunting. And she says to Zeus when she's born that she has this set of rules that she wants for her life. And, you know, these included the fact that she wanted to be independent, that she wanted to be in charge of a kind of realm like hunting, which was seen as, you know, active and perhaps a more like male-led activity at the time. She also never wanted to be married off to another god. She wanted to stay independent her whole life, and she also wanted to have this crew of really like sick women around her at all times that she would just go off and go hunting with. And that she would live on this island and they would be left alone to like do their, you know, have fun and do whatever. And in my head, I just kind of had that moment. It was a bit of like a eureka moment for me. I thought, oh my God, this corresponds exactly to what skating as a woman feels like for me. Like when you're just starting out, it's obviously a very male dominated space, or has been. And that sensation you have, like having a really strong crew of girls that you go out and skate with, and you know, you kind of make it your own space, and girls have made it into their own sort of subculture in a way, like underneath in the broader umbrella of skating. And I just thought that would be such a great kind of concept and sort of brand ideology if there was to be a women's skate brand, like, you know, to have that strength of female character behind it, and you know, that story. And so that's when sort of my brain started ticking over. And then at that point I started thinking that there also wasn't, at least in the UK, like a really kind of a grassroots team of all female skaters that was run by a brand. And I just thought, you know, that at the time when I was like a year into skating, I thought how cool that could have been for me to see a team like that as kind of like an inspiration, and as a way to be like, oh, that's, you know, so incredible. These girls are kind of like out there just doing it. And obviously there was some absolutely amazing talents all over Instagram, but they were kind of like sporadic here and there, and you kind of had to just discover them by process of being on the app. But to have that kind of like official group, I felt like that was kind of lacking. And also kind of for it to be spread across the UK, for it not to be like localized in one specific area, say like, you know, just Bristol or wherever, that there would be kind of members that were all across the UK. So then that paired with that kind of initial brand idea, I just thought, you know, why not give it a try? And I kind of, at that point, created the page on Instagram. And, you know, I've never run a business or a brand before, so I kind of had no plan really. I just kind of created it, and then started talking to the girls that are now part of the team. So the first person I reached out to was Chloe Stafford, and I kind of pitched this idea to her and whether she would be interested. And, you know, I'd kind of seen on her Instagram, you know, that she had an amazing style. She's got really great flow on transition. I just thought, you know, what a great person to start off with. And she was 100% behind it. And, you know, I was then started talking about making clothing, and eventually the goal of Artemis became to create a pair of women's skateboarding trousers, which were kind of custom made to each person, because the fact that it's such a small business, you can do things like that, which is really nice. And yeah, so it kind of just snowballed from there. And then after that, we got Alice Smith, who's called Palace on Instagram. And she's, you know, an incredible skater. And then after that came Connie, and then Hilda, and then Jazz, and then Jess. So like, you know, everyone I spoke to was just so on board with the idea, and were just really keen to have this kind of core, like grassroots UK skate team, and they were just gassed to be part of it. And through that, we've had some really great opportunities to collab with Campus, and other production companies in Bristol to make music videos, and we've raised money for charity. Like we raised 250 quid for the Bristol African Caribbean Culture Centre, which is going to be it's a barge on the Bristol Harbour that's going to feature all sorts of, artwork and kind of like a safe space for music and performers of African Caribbean descent to show their stuff. And and I've since been invited to give talks at the Winchester School of Arts to talk about startup brand management and what I've learned through that, being a completely untrained person. And so it's been a really, really amazing journey since then. And another amazing thing that happened this year was that over half the team got nominated for Girl Skater of the Year in the UK.
Wow.
Which was, that was like, it felt amazing, to have that kind of, because Girl Skate UK is, for those who don't know, is kind of like the national hub of girl skateboarding in the UK. And they started this competition this year because there is that Skater of the Year globally competition by Thrasher. So they started it, but then, so this year, over half the team got nominated.
Over half the team, that's amazing. It's real talent right there.
I know, I was just so proud of the team, honestly. And, in 2021, we've been getting interviews, and Jess and Alice as well have had 2 features in Skateboarder's Companion. And I was interviewed by 245 Mag, which is a Bristol-based independent magazine, to talk about women in skateboarding and in the Bristol scene, particularly what that looks like, and how we feel supported. And so it's been quite a journey now, like being able to talk through all of that from the beginning to now. It's it does put it into perspective that it's kind of, it just happened organically, but it's come a really long way since the beginning. So it's it's been an interesting.
How long is that journey, Gabby? I should have seen this on your page, and I've been browsing a lot, and all of these skaters you've just mentioned, particularly when you said Alice, and then you said, oh, she's on Instagram as Palace, and I thought, yes. So
it's really iconic name.
But how long's that journey been? Because it sounds packed. It sounds like such a long way to come.
Well, it was 3 years from start to finish. It feels like an awful long time, but I suppose 3 years isn't that crazy.
If you've been that busy, it can sometimes feel like that, I suppose. I mean, it's really hit the ground running and it's kind of really snowballed, hasn't it, to be able to achieve all of that?
The last year's been a funny year.
Yeah, but in a way, it's kind of, I've spoken to quite a few other creatives that have kind of, the side hustle aside from the day job about that exact thing. And they've kind of all said that in a way, lockdown and COVID has been beneficial in that sense, because they've had, if people are working from home, they must have more time to give to their creative projects. Because, there's just, that you do have holes in your day now where there are just some things that you can't be doing that you would if you had, if you were in the office, that you can actually just dedicate a bit more time to your creative projects. And that's at least what I found, because I work in production in my day job. I work for natural history film, so I am more of a producer, kind of cinematographer by trade. So being stuck at home, obviously, there are limits to what I can do in a day when I'm stuck in my home office. So it's been actually quite a good year for Artemis in terms of brand development and projects and collabs. And maybe that helps. I don't know.
Sounds like you've kind of got everything that you need, really, to create a strong brand, just kind of by your background. Because look, obviously the skate company, really strong sort of brand image, really strong logo, really strong background, and linking it to the story of Artemis, but also your background as a video photographer, as a video production professional. Are you planning on doing any edits or making any sort of films or anything to promote this anytime soon, or have you in fact?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly how much I'm allowed to say at this point, because we've got some projects that are in collaboration with some other groups. But in terms of just core Artemis parts, I haven't got any plans for that yet, because it's a bit difficult to plan because of COVID. And the fact that we're all in different cities, that makes it, you know, despite the fact that that was kind of like part of the key, you know, things that I set out for, it now means that with COVID, it is an absolute nightmare to try and organise. And these types of videos take years to make anyway. So I'm trying, hopefully I want to start something in the spring next year, when, you know, fingers crossed things will be all right by that point. But but no, we do have some kind of video content coming out in collaboration with some other companies, really cool companies, in the next couple of months or so. So yeah, do keep an eye out for that one.
Do you know, I was having a look at your website last night and I really enjoyed it. And that Artemis, I guess now it makes a lot more sense. I was going to ask you about the text type that comes up when you first go onto your website, and it is, I'm assuming, an extract from that story then.
So actually, Nikita Gill is a poet, and she, you can find her on Instagram actually. She writes a lot of poetry related to mythology, and I just came across that one excerpt. It was a few months back, and I just thought, wow, that's kind of like the perfect. You know, it really encompasses what I explained to you before, that kind of feeling of independence within the sort of skate community that the girls scene has. And I just messaged her and asked her if it was all right to use on the page, and she said yes. So, yeah.
That's really nice. I had this I'm sorry, I'll probably let this out because it's probably irrelevant, but I was listening to a different podcast a couple of days ago, and it's not a skateboarding podcast. It's James A. Caster's Perfect Sound. So it's the comedian, and he just listens to albums from 2016 and he invites guests on. He's trying to convince everyone that that was the best year ever for music, because there were lots of hidden gems. And he was listening to Update Your Brain by the Tuts, the punk rock band, and that is a great album. And he was interviewing them about the album anyway, and he said that he could tell that it was something that needed to exist because he went to a Tuts gig in London, and he's a kind of mid-30s, you know, heterosexual white man, and he walked into the Tuts gig, and he said everyone was lovely and it was really welcoming, but he walked in and felt like he felt like it wasn't his space. He felt like he didn't belong there. But and he said, of course he did, because everyone was very welcoming. But he said that was a brilliant thing, because actually his whole life he had walked into these spaces and everyone had looked like him and behaved like him and felt like him. And actually there was clearly, if you weren't him or someone very similar to him, you would have always felt intimidated within that space. And I think it's wonderful, you know, because when I think about this in terms of skateboarding, because I was trying to think of what to ask you, and I thought, well, I will ask you this, but I was thinking about, well, what products and what kind of things then would you feel are not catered for with women in regards to kind of outfit? And then I thought, well, actually, every single skateboarding website or magazine or everything that I've ever got, I can definitely say has catered for me, which means it must not be catering for other people, because by its definition. So yeah, I mean, in terms of your own kind of demographic and your, I again, looking at what you've said on your website, in terms of you're trying to, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're filling a space that is very much needed and has not been catered for. What kind of products do you feel like, what makes a skateboarding product designed with women in mind? Rather, how do you break away from that tradition, and what is it that's missing, I suppose?
Yeah, I don't know, that's a really good question. because I find that skateboarding clothing is generally sort of, you know, quote unquote, kind of genderless in the sense that it's quite unisex. You know, everyone tends to wear a sort of similar thing, you know, baggy tees, baggy trousers, and sort of the style and the aesthetics of it is kind of, I feel like that doesn't really assign to one gender or another. So that wasn't the exact aim for Artemis. What I wanted to create was to have clothing in that style, but that was specifically tailored to the female body. Because, say for example, if you want to buy a pair of skate trousers as a girl, you're going to go for things like, you know, a Nike SB or a Carhartt or Dickies, and although they do have you know, women's versions of those trousers, they either don't have like half the style range that the men's trousers would have had, and they're also just not, they don't fit a woman's body. Like I have no idea what person they based these trousers off. Honestly, it's like it's almost like they've just taken the man's trousers and just brought the side down rather than actually changing the shape, because obviously we are totally different shapes. And that's what really annoyed me. And I when I was doing the product development, I was asking around with my girl mates and seeing what bothered them about the trousers that they wore, and they were all saying the same thing, that they had to constantly belt up their trousers because they would just, you know, they would just fall down all the time, or they simultaneously would be too tight across the hips and they would just rip constantly. But then you couldn't really wear like your you know, your regular everyday trousers, because then they would just get destroyed within the space of a few weeks. So there was a gap there of like a pair of hard wearing, you know, kind of workwear style in that kind of skating aesthetic, trousers that were actually made for female skaters with the shape of a woman in mind. And then that's when the idea to create the trousers actually first came about. And you know, the development of that took up until last month. So that's, you know, 2.5 years worth of research and going through multiple pattern changes, because I've worked with this brilliant pattern maker in Bristol, who, you know, it's an original piece of clothing. It's not like, you know, you go and get your Gildan tee and you put your print on it and then you send it off into the world. Like, it's something that we actually made from scratch, from flat pieces of paper, which you then cut out the fabric and build into a new piece of clothing. So yeah, we went through various iterations of the design, and they were tested by me. So I would kind of wear the first sample for a month or so, and then I'd come back to him and say, this wasn't quite right, this was good, so keep that, but then change, you know, this other thing. So it took a long time to reach that kind of perfect design, which is you know, where I'm at now. And we're just kind of building up sort of the content for the launch. But it's been a long old road to kind of get to this point when you don't have any kind of foot in the door already with kind of the fashion industry. For those that know it, it is a very shut off world, and it's very exclusive. So if you're coming in from the outside wanting to create something, it is very difficult to kind of get your foot in there. But once you build your connections and you get that kind of production line set up, then it's pretty much good to go. Because, you know, now at this point I know I've got a designer that I can trust, and I can just go back and start making other things. Like, I want to make particularly for the summer, it would be really good to have some skirts, which is like shorts that is also a skirt, so it kind of like has a wrap round on the front, so it looks like a skirt but it's actually shorts, so it's, you know, gives a bit more protection. And then also jorts, which are like jean shorts. They're the ones that are like the 3/4 length that people used to wear in the 90s. You know.
I think Jack still wears them quite frequently.
Yeah, I was thinking, don't stand up.
No, but you know, just kind of like that same aesthetic that we all know and love. That's very genderless within skating, but that is made and custom fit to the women that are wearing them. And that was another one of the big selling points for me, was that because I'm such a small business and I work with one designer, when people order their trousers, they can send in their measurements so that the trousers that they get are actually made to fit them. So they're pretty much guaranteed to have a pair of trousers that they know is just going to fit amazing.
That's going to be your real kind of USP, isn't it? Because you can't. That's not something you're going to be able to just pick up off Route 1 or anything like that. So that's, if anyone sort of wants a really nice pair of skating trousers that fit them perfectly and are hard wearing, you're kind of probably the only place in the UK to go to.
I was going to say, regardless of gender, even like the idea of tailored skateboarding trousers, that's great. I don't think I've ever heard that. You know, that's brilliant.
Because the credit where credit's due, there are other companies in the UK that are making clothes, like Doyen Skateboards makes trousers, but their kind of brand identity is very, you know, non-binary, genderless. You know, anyone can wear their clothes, so they have their trousers are more like surf pants style, so they've got the kind of drawstring waist, and then they're very loose all the way down, whereas the trousers that Artemis has created they're much more structured, so they're like the Carhartt or the Dickies, so they don't have a drawstring waist. So it's that is more for the female shape. So my company is more directed at women towards, rather than it being like a non-gendered output. And then also another thing that I really wanted to do, and what I started out with, was the t-shirts, but they were just on stock, stock t-shirts, but the designs themselves were uniquely commissioned for Artemis. And what I wanted to do with that was to platform upcoming female artists. So all the designs that I have that are available on the website were all made by female artists that were also fully paid for their work, which is something that I think does not happen nearly enough. As a creative myself, I do understand how difficult it is when you're a small upcoming artist or creative. You're almost always asked to work for free just for the exposure, and I really disagreed with that. And I wanted to be a brand that kind of championed both their exposure, but also to remunerate them for their work, and made sure that was fairly done and negotiated with them on a personal basis. And also, some of the women I've got to work with, like Melissa Jaron, she makes stuff for runways, and she's done prints for Nike, and they're still so happy to be involved with just the concept of just platforming female creatives. It's got such a drive behind it, and I'm just so pleased to have that platform to be able to do something like that. So yeah, just kind of in sort of all aspects of the kind of product output of the brand, I wanted women to be at the kind of front and center, both in terms of who it was made for and who it was made by, so that it's kind of, there's that union there,
Yeah, all aspects are covered. I think that's really nice.
Yeah.
The designs are really striking. I've been looking at the t-shirt designs. That Wheelie Good Doodles one in particular is sick. I really like that one.
That one caught my eye.
Yeah, that's
so cool.
A picture of Rianne Evans, who's really big in the UK skate scene, she just kind of has this amazing style. She'll just kind of like draw over the photo, but like leave aspects of the actual photo in the image. but then just kind of cartoonize certain parts of it. And yeah, that picture was really good because obviously the front of her shoe is like really big, and then the skateboard is like a really big feature of that design. And yeah,
it looks sort of quasi fish-eyed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And all of your designs are really colourful and really striking, which, with the exception of that Cape Florence one, which is sort of really artistic and really classical Greek kind of sort of line drawings, but they are. Yeah, and that's the thing, all of your designs are really strong and really striking. I really like that in a t-shirt, to be really punchy and bold and colourful.
Yeah, and then that was also part of the selection process for me, is that I wanted them to be individual, each different in their own way, and making sure that I was picking artists that had different styles. I wasn't just going for a one specific style. But yeah, that they all had their kind of own design identity and were bold and striking.
So I've just got kind of a question that's not less to do with the brand per se, but more to do with being women in skateboarding. So obviously it's something that Jack and I, we're completely clueless. Obviously we are very much grew up in the sort of boys club, men at the skate park, very few women skateboarders around, that kind of time when we started skateboarding. And luckily there's certainly over the last few years there's been an explosion in the number of incredibly talented female skateboarders out there, and who are being put in the media, and who are on certainly the Olympics and skate videos. But something that I've noticed a lot of recently, certainly on Instagram and social media, is that every time someone, like the Berrics, for example, puts up a video of a female skater, some of the comments are absolutely horrific. Like they're really, really bad. And I just want to ask, have you encountered much kind of hostility yourself around your skateboarding at all? Sort of obviously completely unwarranted hostility, but have you ever sort of come across that or been exposed to that at all?
And also, don't feel like you need to answer beyond your comfort zone either, because I appreciate that it's probably...
No, so actually, for me personally, and I always want to stress this, I've never encountered any kind of hostility towards me skating from other skaters. That's the caveat, I think. Actually, if you're out skating on the street, you will get random men shouting at you, but those are the people that are like stood outside the Wetherspoons. It's not someone that's actually partaking in the sport. So but from the actual guys that skate, especially in Bristol, they are so unbelievably welcoming and have been nothing but supportive from the start, literally. That you can go to somewhere like Plaza, which is in the centre of town, and you have some absolutely incredible guys that skate there, like some insane talent, but they are so welcoming of girls that are either just literally just stepped on a board like that day, or people who have been there for several years. So, I mean, I've never personally experienced it, but I do know that there are a lot of girls who have, but mainly I have to say through social media, where people can kind of, I feel like they can sort of hide a bit more behind that kind of, in that cyberspace. You can just say whatever you want, I suppose, and not really get that much repercussion for it. Yeah.
Well, just hearing you say that certainly everyone has been welcoming in general in the skateboarding community is really good to hear, and obviously really positive to hear. And kind of the best answer you can kind of give, really, isn't it? Actually, the people within the community are really welcoming, which is mostly what we've been noticing. We've spoken to everyone, really. Everyone that we've spoken to, no matter who they are, whether they're sort of a 40-year-old mum or 50-year-old train driver, who we've spoken to, everyone has said no matter where they came from, what they're doing, everyone in the skate community has been really supportive and really positive.
Jane said similar. Monica said it was older people that have been giving her more problems.
Yeah,
interesting enough.
Just people who are outside of the community itself have more judgments. It's kind of a little bit what you were saying before, Jack, about how like those who don't actually do the sport don't really understand what it gives you, both socially and in terms of your physical health, your mental health, just everything that skateboarding has to offer. When you're actually in that community, the people who truly love skateboarding are never gonna judge someone for starting out, or for being an older skater, or because they're just so happy to see people actually doing that sport that they love, you know, and they want to share that as much as possible. And the people who are commenting on the barracks, or you know, these other videos of girls skating and saying all these judgmental things, like it comes from, you know, just a place of discontent and just like unhappiness within their own selves, and they don't have that love of the sport to share around. So those people, you know, you just don't pay them any mind. You only really care for the opinion of people that love skating and just want to share that culture with as many people as possible.
You just touched then on your answer about the impact that skateboarding's had on mental health, and certainly over the last year when people have been locked away and stuck behind, that's been a hugely important thing. We've heard that in every single episode without fail, haven't we? I think,
Yeah.
Jack, that's brought up.
I think we both felt it too. I know that feeling more distance from sort of family and loved ones and things like that, and just having less outlets in terms of creative outlets are fine. I guess skateboarding sort of bridges that gap between a creative outlet and an athletic one to some degree. But I think, I can't speak for you, James, but I've definitely felt that benefit over the last year. I felt like that's been, even 2 nights ago, I mean, I snapped my board, so it didn't stay as a positive experience for long, but I went out a couple of nights ago just because I was so, you know, I think I just got to that point where I was a bit fed up. I hadn't seen anyone for a while, apart from kids. I'm a teacher, so my whole life's around children, and I just don't really see adults as much at the moment. And I think I just thought, I need to go and do something. I just need to be away for a minute. And it's I do wonder if people who don't skateboard know what they're missing out on in terms of just that outlet, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this past year has been horrendous in all senses for mental health. But I totally agree with you, Jack, that I found that to be a real lifeline for me throughout this whole year. Even if it was just kind of going out on my own for my hour's worth of exercise, and that first lockdown, which seems like such a distant memory now, you would still see other skaters like out on the street, and you could still be at a spot and remain socially distant, but still have that kind of social interaction and talk to each other from a distance. And I kind of really, really felt the benefits of that. And actually coming out of this lockdown, my housemates and I were having a conversation about this, like that they kind of feel like they've lost the ability to socially interact with people outside of their house, because they don't have that kind of they didn't have skating as a way to kind of keep your practice up, you know, because it's socializing. We don't realize that it's something that you do need to practice. And over this past year, I think that's become so clear that if you lose that kind of connection to the outside world, it can really wear you down, and you have to build that back up again. But of course, with skating, I felt like that was a real, like I said, a lifeline for me in terms of being able to keep my sort of social brain alive, and to sort of not vegetate mentally and socially. Because, you know, it's the same with every skate session. Every time you go out, you meet someone new, and, you know, sure, COVID made that a bit more difficult with, you know, not standing as close to people or like sharing drinks or whatever, but it's still there, you know, that ability to chat to someone new and see some new faces and get some physical exercise at the same time. So
it's a real anchor, isn't it? Because no matter how, certainly myself, I'm crap at speaking to strangers. Like, I'm really bad at sort of introducing myself and speaking to new people. But skateboarding is a really good anchor to kind of cement a degree of bonding around, isn't it? Because even if it's a complete stranger, someone who's trying a trick, you can start doing, you know, asking about it, encouraging about it, start talking about the skating. Yeah, when I'm at a skate park, I make so many kind of like single serving friends that I don't really ever see again. But for that session, like, I'm having a great time with and chatting to and trying tricks together with. And it, no matter who you are, what you do, it is that anchor that you can socialize around, isn't it, really? And it does make it that much easier, certainly coming out of lockdown, just finding something easy to talk about and hang out with people with.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, those single service friends you were just saying, I feel like that really takes the pressure off as well, with like being like feeling like you have to be this kind of like amazing, confident, like social person to be able to talk to someone, like that you do have just this thing in common that you want to share and learn together. And then it's just so easy then to transfer that into outside of skating. it was good practice for me at least.
Yeah. No, I felt that. Again, I said I was just so used to just talking to children all the time, and I think you do become. That's a weird situation because I think you just start talking to everyone like you're patronising them, which I didn't need to do. Because I'm so used to kind of over-explaining, and because that's what you do as with small children, everything is sort of step by step, and it's that you speak like that, and everything's micro instructions, and you think actually most people rightfully fucking hate that, like, you know. But so I think it has been the times that we've met up, James, or we've met up with other people, you know, they have, like you said, Gabby, they've been the lifeline, and they've probably been what's kept me from not becoming too weird, I say with an asterisk. I think doing this as well, as you were saying, James, we both got worse at talking to strangers. I was thinking, like, we are probably the wrong people to be doing this, really. We just talk to strangers once a week.
But this is great because we've spoken to so many people from all around the UK and all around the skate scene. Obviously, there's a few sort of Bristol-centric ones like yourself and a couple of others as well. But we wanted to just chat skateboarding, and actually being able to speak to so many people, and every single one of them has run well over an hour, isn't it? Like, we just found ourselves just chatting about skateboarding over and over again. It's lovely.
It's the most community. Well, you know, Gabby, you've mentioned community a lot today, and that's rightfully so. But I think that doing this, you know, the internet can suck, and we've spoken briefly about that. But there's a lot of good outside of that. Like, if you can blind yourself to that a little bit, because us doing this, James, like, I've been skateboarding half my life now, I'm embarrassed to say, and I've never felt as strong a sense of community as I do have since we've been doing this. Like, suddenly I feel like outside of our little group, who are wonderful, I know and have the privilege of talking to so many different skateboarders from so many different backgrounds, and with different priorities and different needs and different styles and different places. And I feel like my sense of community within skateboarding is stronger than ever, which is a good thing. And like you said, Gabby, I mean, your brand and actually like the girl skate sort of thing, we've spoken to people about this, like Monica. I know we've spoken to Monica and Jane, both freestyle skateboarders, about this. They have a huge community online of girls who do freestyle skateboarding, like the Skate Coven they call themselves, and they really build each other up and support each other. And it seems like you're doing something similar in sort of other areas of skateboarding, and it's really wonderful to see that community does run through everything that you do, because I think that skateboarding lives and dies on community, really, more so than other sports.
And even on your website, you've all your sort of team members, rather than writing team, you've called them your family. So can you tell us a little bit about them? So a little bit about these people that are part of the Artemis family. Obviously, anything that you feel they might not want to get too much about them, but if there's anything that you can say, because it seems like a really cool group of people.
Yeah, well, you know, as I mentioned at the start, I mean, literally all of them I met through Instagram, which I think that is also something that's important to mention for girl skating. The reason why it's been so, it's exploded so much over the past 5 years is because of social media and how easy it is to just post a quick clip of you learning and like your process. And the fact that you can, you know, post your first ollie and it gets celebrated, and, you know, whereas perhaps in the past you would learn how to do your first ollie on the curb outside your house and you'd be on your own and you wouldn't have that kind of, you know, sense of community, and girls would see more girls starting to pick it up and learning it and feel like, oh, it's okay and it's safe for me to start learning and also start posting my own clips. And I think that's where it kind of snowballed. So yeah, so the all of the girls on the team I messaged and approached through Instagram, and probably about half of them we were just chatting beforehand anyway, because just we're skaters and we're part of the same community. So yeah, as I say, Chloe was the first girl that I asked to be on the team, but we kind of knew each other over Instagram. We'd like message back and forth a few times, so I'd just seen some of her clips and just would message. I'd be like, oh, that's so sick, we learned how to do that, like and yeah, so it's it was kind of important for me to, firstly, to have them all from different cities. So Chloe's from Nottingham, Alice is from Birmingham, Jazz is in Worcester, Jess was in Bristol, but she's now gone back up to, I think it's somewhere near Milton Keynes. Connie's in Leeds, Hilda's in Leeds as well. So that was important for me because I wanted to make sure that all parts of the country felt represented. And also I wanted it to be, there to be sort of like a spread of abilities as well. I didn't want it to just be like this super unattainable, like sick team of skaters that were just like at the top, because I wanted it to be relatable as well for girls that were just starting out, that you can have hopes of getting on a team, you know, if you've got great style, you've got like a bag of tricks, whether you're on transition or on street, because the team has a mix of that as well. Like, for example, Chloe is a lot more transition, but over lockdown she's been doing more street, so you know the progression has been building there. And equally, Alice was very street when I first met her and when she first came on the team, but now she's been doing just amazing stuff on transition. So I really wanted it to be like a really big spread within the team, and also that they had to just be friendly and just legends generally. That as well, like, because I just wanted it to be, you know, like I said, a family, and that we all get on and we have a group chat, and it's, you know, I wanted to make sure that it was as diverse as possible in that sense, to make it, you know, realistic and attainable to the people that it was catering for. Like, the whole point of this brand is to encourage girls to skate, and that they can you know, progress to the level of the girls that they see on the team.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll never ever accuse any of your team of being crap skateboarders. What you're essentially saying is crap skaters are welcome.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just that's kind of it. I just wanted it to be the community around skating, and like, you know, that all styles are welcome, all abilities are welcome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you as well, I like that you said, you know, you wanted them all to be like legends, like good people. And I think that that's a changing dynamic in skateboarding and the way that people consume it massively. I know that we grew up, and I still love them, but we grew up watching, you know, like Birdhouse, The End, and things where like everybody was objectively at the top of their game, you know, that possible. And that's amazing stuff. Like there's a place for that. But I think that, you know, especially like this is a step on, I suppose, from the kind of British stuff. Like, it's so male centric, so I hate saying it, but like then when we were in our teens, there was like death and heroin that was really gnarly, but it wasn't just the biggest and the cleanest, it was dirty. And I guess this is the next step. And I love that you said that that you want good people, actually, because I think that skateboarding as a community and as a thing, it is what we make of it. And actually, if we probably went through a stage, we being the collective, because, you know, not me personally, but as a sport or as an activity, we went through promoting people who we probably wouldn't have got on with. Most people wouldn't have liked, like promoting that kind of self-destructive kind of stuff, you know, in the kind of Jackass era of skateboarding, possibly, you know. And it probably doesn't end well. And I really like that if you promote good people, then skateboarding is good, effectively. In effect, it is what you make of it. You know, if you want skateboarding to be a positive community, then push positive people to the forefront of it.
Yeah, and I do think that that's also not just restricted to the girls' scene. So the Skateboarders Companion's been doing some really amazing articles of, you know, male skaters talking about that exact thing, Jack, where, you know, they kind of grew up with that, inheriting that historic culture from the older skaters of, you know, like drinking, drugs, that sort of party culture of skateboarding that can be so detrimental on mental health. Like, especially like the tour culture of of skating, you know, when these teams go on tours and it just like absolutely is just soul destroying in terms of the fact they get no sleep, they're just doing an insane amount of drugs, and the repercussions of that in some of the interviews are just crazy. And you know, the guys who are giving those interviews, they look back and they say like, yeah, that was really toxic and super unhealthy, and I would never want to promote that kind of relationship with skateboarding because of how much joy and how much benefits it does bring. But that there was that kind of, you know, yeah, the jackass era of skating, but I feel like that's kind of passing now. And I think particularly in the wake of Ben Ramers, the spotlight on mental health within skating and how that kind of old style of skating culture can be really damaging and dangerous, has really opened up that kind of conversation, regardless of gender, within skating, that people are more willing to talk about when they're feeling bad, and you know, also saying how skating can help them kind of, and it's almost kind of like a meditative sport that you have to be so focused that you can kind of leave your problems to one side, and not turn it into something that you have to lose yourself in through substance abuse or you know, just that other negative aspect of the sport that perhaps was a thing of the past. So it does make me really happy to see, you know, big you know, OG magazines kind of pushing that new message, and yeah, there's just no need for toxic characters either in skating anymore. I just don't think that's not what the community's about now. It's not about that kind of that superstar skater that can just do whatever the hell they want because they're really good at the sport. You know, it's more than that now. It's about, you know, yeah, the community and the group and what good it brings to everyone.
But before we go, Gabby, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, I feel like it's been meditative. I feel like it's been really, I'll be thinking about this a lot. I think it's been really nice and calming. Before we go, is there anything that you would like to plug or promote or tell people to look out for?
Yes.
Anyone for that matter.
Yeah. So in terms of projects for Artemis that are coming up, as I said, we've got a couple of video outputs that will be coming out in the next couple of months, so keep an eye on their Instagram for that. But we also have a workshop, a 3-day workshop that we're planning alongside Campus Skate Park, so it's coming up in July, and more details are going to be released probably when this is out, so in a couple of months. So yeah.
Where can we find you online and on the socials? What are your handles and tags and websites?
Yeah, so the Instagram is at Artemis Skate Co. That's the main social platform really, and then via that the website is in the link in our bio, and you've got various blog posts and information up on there. So yeah.
Awesome, brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Yeah,
Lovely talking to you.
Real pleasure.
Been great, thank you.
Cool.
Excellent. And hopefully we'll see you around Bristol skating at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you love skateboarding but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood,